Riley. They took me. I don't know where I am. I think they're going.
And just like that, Sierra Gray, 23-year-old famous social media influencer, was never heard from again. At least, not alive. Imagine getting a call like this in the middle of the night. Your best friend, panicked, terrified, telling you she's been taken. And before you can even ask where or who, the line goes dead. Would you know what to do? Would you even believe it at first? Or would you assume it's some kind of sick joke? Because that's exactly what Riley thought. Until the news broke and Sierra never got home. And by the time anyone realized it, it was already too late. Sierra Gray wasn't just another face on the internet. She was a name people recognized. A rising star. At just 23 years old, she had built a massive following on TikTok. About 800,000 people watched her contents. Whether it was her perfectly timed dance trends, her day-in-the-life videos, or just the effortlessly fun personality she radiated through the screen, Sierra knew how to keep people watching. She had deals rolling in, businesses reaching out for sponsorships, and a growing career in the digital space. But beneath the highlight reels and viral moments, she was just a regular young woman navigating life. One where fame didn't protect her from heartbreak, betrayal, or danger. One of the biggest parts of Sierra's personal life was her relationship with a guy named Jason. To the outside world, they were the picture-perfect couple. Young, attractive, living a dream life. Sierra even shared glimpses of their relationship online, sometimes posting videos of their dates or playful pranks. But what social media didn't show was the slow collapsing of trust between them because Jason wasn't faithful. Sierra had recently discovered that the guy she had been investing her heart into had been seeing someone else. And it wasn't just any random girl. It was Riley, her best friend. The betrayal was something Sierra never saw coming. Riley wasn't just a friend, she was like a sister. They had been inseparable for years, sharing everything from inside jokes to childhood memories. But all of that crumbled the moment Sierra found out that her best friend and her boyfriend had been playing around behind her back. Sierra and Riley had a massive fight. There were angry texts, accusations, and the kind of words that couldn't be taken back. They stopped talking completely. But silence doesn't always mean closure. After weeks of tension, Sierra decided she couldn't just leave things the way they were. Maybe she wanted answers. Maybe she wanted to make peace. Whatever the reason, she decided to go to Riley's place to talk. The night Sierra Gray vanished was supposed to be just another night. Just a conversation. Just closure. She had spent the evening at Riley's apartment, face to face with a friend who had betrayed her. The tension in that room must have been unbearable. Two former best friends, now standing on opposite sides of a broken friendship, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. No one knows exactly how the conversation went. Maybe voices were raised. Maybe tears were shed. Maybe, for a brief moment, Sierra thought things could be repaired. But at some point, the conversation ended. And Sierra walked out the door, alone. It was late, dark, and Sierra was now on foot, making her way back home. But there was one problem. Her phone battery was dangerously low as at the time of leaving Riley's place. She had ignored the warning notifications earlier in the evening, thinking she'd charge it when she got home. Now, she was out on the street with a phone that was barely hanging on. At about 10:47 p.m., she tried to send a text to her mom, but it never went through. The text said, "I'm coming back home now, but I feel weird walking alone. I swear someone's watching me." Somewhere between Riley's apartment and the route back to Sierra's home, she vanished. She never made it to a well-lit area. Never got the chance to borrow someone's phone and call for a ride. One moment, she was walking. The next, she was gone. A few minutes after Sierra left Riley's place, she saw her calling. According to Riley, she missed Sierra's first two calls and was about to return them before Sierra's third call came in again.
Riley, they took me. I don't know where I am. I think they're going.
She was still trying to talk when the call ended. Did Sierra's phone battery finally go off? Or did one of her abductors hear her and take the phone from her before she could complete her sentence? At this point, Riley had to sit up straight, staring at her phone. She tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. She tried again. And again. Nothing. At first, she thought maybe Sierra was playing a cruel joke on her. Some kind of twisted payback for what had happened with Jason. She checked her messages. The last text she had from Sierra was from earlier that day before she came over. There was no follow-up message after that. Riley thought about calling the police. But what would she even say? That she got a phone call with no location, no details, and no way to call back? Instead, she tried convincing herself that Sierra was okay and that it was a joke or a prank. That maybe the call was nothing. That maybe Sierra would walk through the door any second and say, "Gotcha." But Sierra never did. And that call was the last time anyone ever heard her voice. The case took a drastic turn when Sierra had not returned home, and her mom was already getting worried. According to Sierra's mother, Agnes, she tried calling her daughter's phone multiple times, but she couldn't reach her. It was at that moment she called Riley to ask if her daughter was still at her place. Riley was surprised to hear that Sierra had not arrived home and told Agnes what had happened. Agnes immediately escalated the issue by calling the police to report the case. She was initially mad at Riley for not taking the issue seriously because she thought it was a joke. The dispatcher tried to calm her down, asking for details. But what details did Agnes even have? No location. No description. Just Sierra's last words before the line went dead, according to her friend, Riley. Within minutes, law enforcement was on the move. The first thing they did was retrace Sierra's last known steps. They checked traffic cameras, business security footage, anything that might show where she had gone. And then, they found something. A CCTV camera, positioned across the street from where Sierra was last seen, had captured a dark-colored van parked near the sidewalk. It had been there for several minutes, with its engine running but just sitting there. A few minutes later, the timestamp showed the van's door sliding open. But then, it became static. The footage wasn't clear enough to show what happened next. No clear view of Sierra. No proof of who was inside. And the worst part? The license plate was too blurry to read. A local shop owner, closing up for that night, later told the police that he remembered seeing Sierra walking past his store, alone. But what stood out to him wasn't just Sierra. It was that 3 guys were slowly walking behind her. They were just a short distance from her. But he didn't think much of it at the time. People walk at night all the time. Strangers come and go. But when he saw Sierra's face on the news the next day, he knew. He had seen something that night. Something that might have been the last glimpse of Sierra Gray before she disappeared forever. By morning, the internet had already exploded. Sierra wasn't just any missing person. She was a TikTok star. Her 800K followers quickly turned into a digital army of internet detectives, piecing together every bit of information they could find. Theories were running wild. Was this a targeted abduction? A stalker? A fan who had become obsessed? Some people claimed they saw a figure in the background of Sierra's old TikTok videos, always loitering, always watching. Others speculated about Riley, about Jason, about the bitter breakup that had happened just days before. But for law enforcement, none of it led to Sierra. No calls. No ransom notes. No signs of life. She was just gone. When someone disappears under mysterious and terrifying circumstances, the first step is to look at the people closest to them. And in Sierra's case, there were plenty of reasons to suspect those around her. Suspect number 1. Riley, the best friend with a motive. Riley had been the last person to see Sierra alive. They had fought badly. Could Riley have been involved? Detectives didn't waste time bringing her in for questioning. They wanted to know. Why did Sierra leave her apartment so late at night? Why did she walk home alone? And why, out of everyone, Was Riley the person Sierra called in her final moments? Riley swore she had nothing to do with it. She said she had been at home the entire time. But detectives weren't convinced. Not at first. Then her location traced from her phone records at the time of the incident showed was still at home, even during the time of the abduction. And just like that, she was ruled out. The suspect number 2 was Jason, the cheating ex-boyfriend. Jason had betrayed Sierra in the worst possible way, cheating with her best friend. But was that betrayal enough to turn into something darker? Detectives questioned Jason, pressing him about his whereabouts that night. He claimed he was out drinking with friends. They checked. The bar's security cameras backed him up. Not only that, his phone data showed he was still at the bar at the exact time Sierra was abducted. So unless Jason had somehow hired someone to take Sierra, he was out. Suspect number 3 was the shop owner. Was he a witness or a liar? There was one more person in this case that didn't sit right with investigators. The shop owner. The only witness to claim he saw something that night. But what if he saw more than he was admitting? Think about it. He was outside, he saw the 3 figures, he saw Sierra. So why didn't he do anything? And why did he suddenly become the main source of information in a case where no one else seemed to know anything? Detectives dug into his background. Any criminal history? Any reports of stalking, violence? Nothing. His business records, phone logs, and personal life all checked out. So once again, another suspect ruled out. With Riley, Jason, and the shop owner all eliminated. One haunting question was left. If it wasn't them, then who was it? The moment news broke that Sierra Gray was missing, the internet did what it does best. It took over. And within hours, Sierra's disappearance was everywhere. Millions of people, from true crime fans to random strangers, were suddenly invested in the case. Her followers posted videos begging for information. Her friends shared old pictures, hoping someone, anyone, had seen her that night. But like always, it didn't take long for wild theories to flood the internet. Some people analyzed her past TikToks, claiming she had secretly hinted that someone was watching her. Others combed through old comments, convinced that a mysterious user had been stalking her for months. One person even claimed they had predicted this would happen. Of course, none of it actually led to Sierra. Then came the fake confessions. Random people started claiming responsibility for her disappearance. Some left cryptic messages in her comment section. Others created entire fake accounts, pretending to be her abductor. Law enforcement had to waste valuable time chasing down these leads, only to find that none of them were real. A growing number of people believed that Sierra had a stalker or a number of stalkers. Was she being followed long before that night? And if so, who was behind it? But despite all the theories, the fact remained that Sierra was still missing. For 4 days, hope was still alive. Even with no leads, Sierra's family, friends, and followers clung to the possibility that she was out there, somewhere, waiting to be found. But then came the discovery that no one was prepared for. It was early morning, just before sunrise. A man was jogging along a trail near a quiet Florida lake, a place where people came to clear their minds, not find nightmares. But as he ran past a small, wooded area, something felt wrong. The ground looked disturbed, almost like it had been recently dug up. At first, he thought it was nothing. But then, he noticed something sticking out of the dirt. He stopped, took a step closer and saw it. A piece of fabric. Pale, dirty, and barely visible beneath the loose soil. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. When law enforcement arrived, they sectioned off the area and started digging. What they found would confirm everyone's worst fear. Buried beneath the earth was Sierra Gray's lifeless body. She had been assaulted before being buried alive. Her hands were still tightly clenched, her body contorted, a silent testament to her final moments of terror. She had fought hard. But in the end, she didn't stand a chance. Whoever did this had been careful. When news of Sierra Gray's death became public, It was as if the entire world paused. The internet, which had spent days speculating and throwing out theories, suddenly went silent. The people who had hoped for a miracle now had their worst fears confirmed. But no reaction was more heartbreaking than her mother's. Sierra's mom, Agnes Gray, had spent 4 agonizing days clinging to the hope that her daughter would be found alive. She had begged people online to help spread awareness. She barely ate. She barely slept. And when detectives knocked on her door that morning, she already knew. She didn't need them to say it. She could see it in their faces. Sierra was gone. Witnesses said her screams could be heard from down the street. She collapsed right there on the floor, weeping and repeating, "No. Not my baby. Not my baby." How does a mother even begin to process something like this? One moment, your child is full of life. The next, you're being asked to identify her remains. The internet, which had once fueled wild theories, erupted with grief. Sierra's TikTok account became a memorial overnight. Her last video, just days before her disappearance, was flooded with comments like, "I can't believe she's gone. May her gentle soul rest in peace. Whoever did this needs to pay." People who had never met Sierra in real life felt like they had lost a friend. Her face was everywhere. Hashtag Justice for Sierra and hashtag Who Killed Sierra Gray trended for weeks. But behind the screen, none of it could bring her back. Riley, Sierra's best friend, went completely silent on social media. Was it guilt? Or was she simply too shattered to speak? She later posted a single Instagram story, a black screen with white text. "I don't even have words. I'm so sorry, Sierra." Jason, Sierra's ex-boyfriend, deactivated all his accounts. Some believed he just wanted to escape the backlash, while others wondered if he knew more than he let on. Sierra wasn't living a dangerous life. She wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was just going home. And yet, that night, she unfortunately crossed paths with the worst kind of people. There were no footprints. No fingerprints. No obvious DNA. The killers had taken everything from her. Her life, her future, but they had left behind only one thing. A crime scene with more questions than answers. Who were they? Why her? And most disturbingly, had they done this before? At first, investigators believed they were close to a breakthrough. Sierra's case had national attention. Thousands of people were following it, demanding justice. Law enforcement combed through security footage, searched nearby properties, and even brought in specialized forensic teams. But in the end, nothing. No DNA under her nails. No hair, fibers, or blood that could link back to anyone. It was as if the 3 abductors had vanished into thin air. The van seen on security footage was untraceable. The case had all the elements of a solvable crime: witnesses, footage, even a desperate phone call from Sierra herself. But without physical evidence or reliable identification, police were left at a dead end. The 3 people responsible had been careful. Too careful. And that's what made it terrifying. This wasn't a random crime. This was calculated. Planned. Someone or some group had done this before, or would do it again. Months passed. Then years. Sierra Gray's murder became one of Florida's most haunting cold cases. The internet moved on. The headlines faded. But the questions remained. Who were the 3 people who took her? How had they managed to leave no trace? And most importantly, were they still out there, watching, waiting for their next victim? Out of all the people in Florida, what made her a target? 3 people worked together to abduct, harm, and bury Sierra alive. That's not random. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment crime. It was orchestrated. So the question is, how long had they been watching her? Did they follow her every move for weeks? Months? If 3 people were involved in Sierra's death, where are they now? Did they disappear into ordinary life, hiding in plain sight? Or are they out there, watching someone new. And if that's the case, how do we stop them before it's too late? Somewhere out there, 3 people know exactly what happened to Sierra Gray. They know why they chose her. They know what she went through in those final moments. And they know exactly how they got away with it. But to this day, they've never been caught. The case remains a cold, unanswered mystery. And the scariest part is that they could be anywhere. This case has made everyone wonder how many times we cross paths with the wrong people and not even realize it. Do you think this case will ever be solved? Drop your comments below. And if this case has you thinking, there are so many more stories just like it that we have to bring to you. So, if you want to hear more, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. See you in my next video.